5 reasons to invest in an integrity management program.
Sustaining and increasing organizational competitiveness is more and more linked with the willingness and ability of managers to build business models along ethical principles and to contribute to positive societal change. 15 If we revert to the basic assumptions of institutional 16 and organizational economics 17, 18, 19, it becomes obvious that ethical values of individuals, organizations, and societies are always basic elements of the governance and control mechanisms of any transaction between individuals or organizations. An economic transaction entails a set of informal constraints that are being caused by the incompleteness of markets. Contractual arrangements, therefore, are an integral part of a functioning transaction. Williamson 20 used the term atmosphere in this context, without specifically referring to values, morality, or ethics. This was later done by Wieland, 21, who introduced a theory of the ethics of governance. The structures that govern economic transactions contain explicit values, morals, and/or cultural preferences that can be theoretically conceptualized as formal and informal institutions. In this theoretical approach, specific mechanisms exist on different governance levels such as law, societal and organization-specific cultural patterns, or formal control and management mechanisms within an organization. The ultimate objective behind these formal and informal governance structures is to stabilize or to increase the mutual gain of an economic and social transaction between different transaction partners. 22 In this theoretical scenario, the development of ethics becomes endogenous rather than exogenous to the economic process. 23 This means that moral issues are conceptualized as a genuine part of the classic economic problem to overcome the scarcity of resources and competencies in a competitive setting. 24, 25, 26. A crucial element of the individual or collective ethical values, and the relevant governance structures that establish, promote, and enforce adherence with these values, is a set of moral or ethical resources that have an economic value, while having an impact on the initiation, enforcement, and the monitoring of a transaction. 27. The moral resources of a company that represent the foundation of its culture and identity work as a filter for the perception and the selection of risks that managers take in the context of business opportunities. These moral resources also serve as governance parameters for management, but only if these parameters are properly embedded in the governance mechanisms of the organization. Integrity management functions as a moral, relevant governance mechanism. 28 It plays a critical role in this context as the values and qualities of individuals and organizations determine which strategic options are perceived and considered as being appropriate and how these and subsequent strategic objectives will be achieved throughout a firm's value creation process. On a more tactical level, this leads to 5 dominant reasons for investing in integrated, proactive, and dynamic integrity management, including 1. Recognizing ethical responsibility and safeguarding the integrity of the company, 29, 2. Generating new growth opportunities through innovation and performance-driving integrity activities, 30, 3. Protecting and improving the reputation of a company, 31, including maintaining attractiveness for current and future employees in mind, 4. Establishing values-sensitive risk management that focuses on systemic risk mitigation, drivers 32 rather than tactical risk minimization, and 5. Fostering a culture of integrity that systematically enables employees to behave in line with ethical expectations and standards. 33 We suggest that these 5 dimensions will strengthen the business case for integrity and compliance management, particularly if it is closely linked and aligned with the strategic priorities of a company. Although the general recognition of ethical responsibilities and the protection of reputation, as well as the management of risks, are often communicated in corporate brochures and annual reports, specific objectives of integrity and compliance programs or integrity management processes are still only rarely identifiable in practice. There is often a discontinuity between communicating expectations of ethical conduct in theory, and managerial actions in practice. Instead, managers often argue that illegal or illegitimate behavior is often unavoidable because competitors do not consider legal or ethical standards to the same extent, and therefore a company would be at risk of losing important contracts, or that potential customers would not consider the firm's products or services if certain requests were not accepted. These same managers argued that refusing requests that are in conflict with ethical behavior leads to lower levels of competitiveness and ultimately threatens firm survival. In our research, we often hear the aphorism, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do." Examples of this perspective are vast. For example, executives at Gequita Brands International Incorporated argued along the same lines when they tried to justify illegal payments to the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, and the National Liberation Army, ELN, terrorist organizations in Colombia, who have killed thousands of innocent people with weapons purchased from these payments. 34 Another example is the bribery scandal that recently surrounded Germany's Siemens AG, one of the leading global conglomerates in Europe and often touted as Germany's General Electric, GE. In early 2007, a court convicted two former Siemens managers of paying €6 million in the late 1990s and early 2000s to help the company win contracts from an Italian energy conglomerate worth approximately €450 million. The company had to pay a €38 million penalty. The following year, Siemens accepted a $1.34 billion fine when investigators identified dubious payments of more than €1.3 billion over a period of 4 years in the early 2000s. 35 Whereas in the Gequita case managers avoided prosecution and only the company paid a fine to the U.S. Justice Department, in the Siemens case, managers were penalized individually for criminal misconduct,